What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt Taville with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Carl the Cobra Froch. And this is what he had to say about Anthony Joshua's last performance. He said that Joshua's rematch against Andy Ruiz Jr. was meaningless. Okay? And Fury is the best heavyweight, says the former world champ Froch. Okay? He says he would favor Tyson Fury over the two, according to Froch. Of course, he said, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Tyson Fury, and that's just because I think he's probably a 55 to 45 favorite. And say, okay, he says, the Avenge rematch doesn't mean anything because of how the fight went and the state Ruiz turned up in. 20 stone, slow, a slob, lazy. He say it's almost an even money fight, and I'd edge towards Fury just because of how AJ got dismissed by Ruiz in the first fight. He say he got beat up in the first Ruiz fight, and that's a bad chink in his armor, a real bad one. He said the Avenge rematch doesn't mean anything because of how the fight went, and the state Ruiz turned up in, of course, slow, slob, and lazy. He says fair play to him. He did the job. I'm not criticizing him, but it wasn't the kind of fight that makes you think AJ's back. He's back from a bad beating, and that's the only fight he's had since a bad beating, a non-fight. Since he's got beat up, I've not seen anything that's told me that he's back to the way he used to be. Okay? Of course, Joshua had been due to fight Kubrat Pulev for the IBF eliminator, or should I say mandatory, in June. But, of course, the coronavirus has happened, so that's pushed that back. Meanwhile, Fury is contracted to be in a trilogy fight with Deontay Wilder. The Gypsy King 31 produced a stunning performance against the American in beating him in 7 rounds. Okay, now Carl Froch, he said that he believes that that fight is meaningless because the Ruiz didn't really show up to fight. He just showed up for the check. And a lot of people criticized Joshua like that in that regards, because they were like, okay, well, you were good, but your opponent wasn't good because he didn't even come in freaking shape. Right? I mean, a lot of people will say that. And I've been saying this about Joshua because a lot of people are asking me, well, how do you think the Pulev fight would go? And I'm like, well, it depends on what Joshua shows up. Because Joshua was focused on boxing Ruiz, which he did, okay? And Ruiz did come in 17 plus pounds heavier than he did in the first fight. You know, so, and it also tells you, he said he ate everything in sight and he gained 17 pounds. You know what that tells me? That tells me that he gained a lot more than 17 pounds. I think what he did was he got probably over 300 pounds. And he probably lost that just to make that number or that weight limit, okay? You know, and him being slow and lazy and stuff like that, I don't think that has a lot to do with it, okay? I'm going to jump on the Teddy Atlas train with this because he said something very particular. Andy Ruiz did not cut the ring off. He didn't even try to cut the ring off. Now, you could argue because he was lazy, he didn't try. But at least if you know one thing is not working, you wouldn't let somebody tall, 6'5", 6'6", jab the shit out of you all night. You wouldn't allow that to happen if you were a warrior or a fighter. It doesn't matter how fat you are or how big you are. And in the first fight, yes, Joshua did take a beating. Why? Because he was hurt when he was trying to finish off a fighter, and it caught him by surprise. And it is disappointing because he didn't instinctively have enough experience to hold on. If you see the second fight, he was holding on. He knew how to grab Ruiz. And it was funny, a tall guy grabbing a little short dude like that, little short, pudgy dude, like Tyson says. Right? But it was funny to see. But it showed that Joshua did learn how to hold on and to clinch and to do the instinctive things that he did not know in the first fight to do because he's so used to knocking people out. Right? Look at his knockout percentage, his ratio, his reputation. Okay? So I don't think it was that bad. But you could argue that. That's just my counterpunch on it. But according to Carl Froch's counterpunch, that Ruiz was not ready or prepared to go into a fight. Now, since Carl Froch thinks that, along with a lot of other people think that, they might think, well, damn, Ruiz didn't even show up. He admitted it. You can't argue that the motherfucker was out of shape because he was. Okay, and you would have a good point. He just showed up for a check. You couldn't argue. Here's the thing. You couldn't dispute that too much. If someone said, man, Ruiz didn't even come to fight, he just showed up for a check. What does that tell you? That tells you that takes the credit from the Joshua win, right? And people would favor Tyson Fury. Why? Because Tyson Fury had a better performance against someone, against a different fighter that was undefeated. Now, mind you this, though. Fair play. We have to look at it both sides. We do that on this side of the street. Okay? I'm loading a video right now about Wilder. Wilder admit, I wasn't myself. Well, shit. They said that about Joshua. Joshua wasn't himself, right? That was not the real Anthony Joshua. That's what Bob Arum said. A lot of people said that, right? He wasn't quite himself. Wilder's saying it himself that he wasn't quite himself. Okay, so does that diminish Tyson Fury's victory? Even Tyson Fury himself said he didn't sound like himself. He didn't sound quite like himself. He didn't seem quite like that. He's still a Dawson, right? So back to this, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean then? That means that, okay, Joshua showed up December 8th, but didn't show up June 1st. But then vice versa. Ruiz showed up June 1st, but didn't show up December 8th. Right? Okay, so what does this mean? What does this mean to me? It means that this could warrant a third fight. What's Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury doing? A third fight. Right? So it is what it is. If Ruiz, has this big announcement, it may be, hey, I want to fight Joshua the third time. Even though he should have understood the position that he was in. He was only the man unless he beat Joshua again. And you can't really blame nobody but Andy Ruiz, though. So third fight or not, he should have done what he's supposed to do in the second fight. In fact, he should have done better than he did in the second fight, and he would have to work harder. But again, Ruiz is not a guy that likes to cut the ring off anyway. I never seen him do it. He likes to do his work inside, in the middle of the ring when someone commits and overcommits like Joshua did in the first fight. He didn't do that this fight. And when Joshua did want to do that, he did get clipped a bit, right? Just a bit. Okay, so, but that wasn't because Ruiz was doing what he was supposed to do. Ruiz was supposed to cut the ring off because he knew at this point Joshua was leaning down, okay? He's getting advice, nutritious-wise from Klitschko and other little advice points. And he knew, I'm going to have to take the fight to this guy, cut the ring off, work the body, slow him down, work the body some more, set up punches upstairs, and hopefully get this guy out by 8 or 9. But he didn't do that. He didn't cut the fucking ring off. Like Wilder told him and screamed at him, sounding like Coach Carter. Right? But, but by Carl Froch's standards, by his words, by his own counterpunch, this really only warrants a third fight because it seems like to me that Joshua has to do something in a way, or do something when Andy Ruiz decides to show up in shape. And in newsflash, people, even if there was a third fight and Ruiz got, I don't know, $10 million to fight him for the third fight, right? So that's 13, 7, and 10 this time. And he showed up a tub of lard, right? He showed up a tub of lard. What could Joshua do about it besides do what he did the second time? See, that ain't Joshua's fault, though. Just like it ain't Tyson's Fury's fault that Deontay Wilder was whatever the fuck he was that night. Okay? So, but that's what this tells me. You know, it warrants a third fight. So if I'm Andy Ruiz, I would be holding this article, saving the link to this article, trying to promote this particular article and this particular argument. That's what I would be doing if I'm Andy Ruiz. But if it does just so happen you are granted a third fight, a third jackpot blessing that changed your ever-loving life, you better come in shape, because we don't want any excuses on the third fight. Anyway, that's my counterpunch on that. You guys tell me what you think about Carl Froch, his comments. Of course, please subscribe, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.